What if Batman had superpowers and was gay and was totally in love with Superman? Yep, that's the tweet. What is up, Earth's mightiest subscribers? It's Blur Without Fear. Welcome back to the channel. Midnighter is an unusual character if for no other reason than he started out as a sardonic take on DC Comics Batman, who debuted in Stormwatch Volume 2 number 4 in 1998 and is created by Warren Ellis and Brian Hitch. This is at a time just under a year prior to Wildstorm being absorbed into DC Comics when Jim Lee sold off the imprint the next year, in 1999. How could a character like this survive such a brand-wide sell-off? Very carefully, apparently. For those that don't know, Midnighter was meant to be a more violent and hardcore version of DC's Caped Crusader. Not only was he more violent and hardcore, but he was also written as a homosexual man. There was also a lot more mystery surrounding the character of Midnighter, and some would say that's easy considering Batman has a 75+ year history in comics, but this had more to do with the fact that since Midnighter's debut at Wildstorm in Stormwatch Volume 2 number 4 in 1998, up until this very day, roughly 25 years later, we still know very little about Midnighter's life prior to becoming Midnighter. We still don't even know his real name. Everyone just simply calls him Midnighter or the Midnighter. He's also gone by other names, but they've all been aliases or pseudonyms. Even the name Lucas Trent that he tends to use as an alias is one he made up. And once he became part of the DC Comics Prime Earth continuity in 2015's Midnighter Volume 2 number 1, he still didn't know his own origin story. This is actually a carryover from Warren Ellis's The Authority from 1999 and the early 2000s. In 2013's Stormwatch Volume 3 number 19, it was revealed he was abducted by aliens when he was a teenager and experimented on. These experiments supposedly led to him gaining the superhuman capabilities that he currently has. This is notable because this is actually what happened to his husband, Apollo. But Midnighter would borrow this origin story just the same. It would even lead to them breaking up for a time when Apollo learned the truth about Midnighter's lies regarding his origin in 2015's Midnighter Volume 2 number 2. Midnighter possesses enhanced strength thanks to carbon muscles and bones that allow him to apply 1,000 kilograms per square centimeter of force with each of his individual fingers and toes. He's been depicted shattering objects made of steel simply by kicking them, and he's often shown ripping adult human beings in half with his bare hands. Midnighter's speed is considered faster than the human eye can see, even for those who possess superhuman speed and perception, though he cannot maintain that speed for long stretches of time, only in short bursts. And while he's incredibly fast, he tends to normally move around at what is considered slightly faster than average human speed. He also possesses enhanced reflexes, which are so fast he can respond to attacks he's completely unaware of. His body is able to respond to any attack within microseconds, which is more than enough time for him to dodge, even if it's a bullet fired from a high-caliber gun. He's been depicted jump spin kicking a 120mm round as it was being shot from a tank and deflecting it into another tank with the exact same force as it was shot, destroying it. His ability to take punishment could easily be mistaken for superhuman, but is only considered enhanced. He's been depicted as taking beatings no normal human could possibly survive, and he's walked away from all of them, whether it's being shot multiple times, having his neck broken, or being set on fire. He can survive it. At one point in time, Midnighter possessed several types of implants that would help him push beyond his normal pain thresholds and survive unimaginably fatal injuries to continue fighting on, even implants that allowed him to turn off his pain receptors and others that allowed him to no longer require food, water, or even air. But all of these have been removed, some during his Wildstorm run and others after joining the DC Comics universe. That said, he does still have a healing factor that allows him to heal from anything, rebuilding his physiology as if nothing ever happened to him. He's healed healed a broken neck with 0 negative side effects in a matter of moments, 3rd-degree burns, and he even cured himself of AIDS, among other diseases and viruses, in a matter of 6 weeks. Even the common cold can only affect him for a few minutes at best. Midnighter's main bread and butter is his precognitive mind. Originally, it was depicted as Midnighter having the ability to predict how any situation could unfold before it even started. He could, in milliseconds, run millions of simulations in his mind and come up with the best possible solution to whatever issue he needed to deal with at the time, and more specifically, figure out how to manipulate the scenario to get the exact result that he wanted. He can even use this to accurately discern what a person's next action will be before they have even decided what they're going to do. He typically used this for battlefield applications and combat scenarios, but he's also used this to settle arguments and debates. This ability essentially means his mind works no differently than a supercomputer, and one can even make the argument that his intelligence is likely just as enhanced as his physical abilities. His cognitive and deductive capabilities are nearly unmatched. That said, some heroes and villains have found ways to circumvent his precognitive mind by either not making the first move or simply not knowing what their next move is going to be, as was the case when Midnighter faced off with the Joker in DC Wildstorm Dream War number 5. Joker's chaotic nature made it difficult for Midnighter to come up with a plan, even remarking that every outcome that he calculated came up 0. It's also been revealed that anyone who can process information faster than Midnighter, even if only by a single nanosecond, can get the drop on him easily. Other than his battlefield precognition, his 5 senses are also enhanced to the point of allowing him to perceive many things others are incapable of, even being able to zoom in his own eyesight to see things much farther away than a normal human could. He's also capable of hearing at farther ranges too, even being able to focus his hearing to zone in on a specific sound, frequency, person, or thing. Even on a passive level, his mind is always analyzing anything his 5 senses detect. By simply glancing at another person, even from far away, Midnighter can tell if they have chemical or cybernetic augmentations, superpowers, or hidden weapons, even down to the point that he knows exactly how any of the weapons or powers they possess work. He can also just look at someone and sense their brain's activity. Midnighter is also a multilingual, able to fluently speak several languages, including German, Chinese, Japanese, and French, among other things. He's also one of the most prolific close-quarter killers in both the Wildstorm and DC Comics universe. He knows more than a dozen different martial arts disciplines, as well as being trained in twice as many styles of weapons combat, though he tends to rely mostly on guns, throwing stars, eskrima sticks, and a telescopic bow staff. He's such a deadly fighter that he can kill 30 superpowered soldiers without a single one laying a finger on him. Originally, Midnighter had a vulnerability to psionic attacks during his time at Wildstorm due to such attacks making it possible to shut off his many implants, but since joining the DC universe, he seems largely unaffected by psionic attacks because he no longer has many of these implants. He's resisted telepathic attacks from psionics as powerful as Martian Manhunter. He also once had a weakness to nanite infection and being remote controlled due to his many implants that could cause him to be shut down completely or even taken control of. But once again, he no longer has many of these, so it's no longer an issue for him. Midnighter is a very compelling character. He's a take charge, brash kind of guy, but not so brash that he doesn't have a plan. Sometimes his actions can be taken as him just throwing himself into the lion's den, but more often than not, and I would even say 100% of the time, he's already worked out the math on how it's going to work out. That's why even some of the most chaotic and harebrained schemes that Midnighter throws himself into are actually deep down fully planned out in methodical actions. Midnighter is also a very closed-off person who doesn't really give many people the opportunity to get close to him, with Apollo being one of the few people he's ever actually opened up to, and even Apollo doesn't know everything about Midnighter. As far as recommended reading goes, I'm gonna recommend that you check out Stormwatch Volume 2, number 4 through 6 to see Midnighter's earliest beginnings in his start with Stormwatch, and then jump over to The Authority, Volume 1, number 1 through 12 to see Midnighter and his husband Apollo join up with an all-new superhero team that has been announced to be getting their own live-action film in the new DC Universe slate of films, and just see how far Midnighter is willing to go to build a better world. I'll also recommend that you check out both Midnighter Volume 1, number 1 through 20, and Midnighter Volume 2, number 1 through 12. These are both Midnighter's first solo outings, with his Volume 1 series being his first solo outing in the Wildstorm universe, and Volume 2 being his first solo outing in the DC Comics universe. These are both really good places to start with Midnighter if you just want to know more about the character, as well as get to know his origins, or rather his lack thereof, and in both series witness him attempting to do the most good humanly possible in the most violent ways humanly possible. I'm also going to recommend you check out Grifter and Midnighter number 1 through 6 to see Midnighter and Grifter become unlikely allies to take down some of the ugliest aliens in Wildstorm history, and that's saying something. I'll also recommend you check out Midnighter and Apollo number 1 through 6 to see the pairing together working in ways that, while technically we have already seen in many of the various Authority comic book series, but in a way that I think is more unique than anything we had ever seen before. I will also recommend you check out The Authority Revolution number 1 through 12 to witness Midnighter getting a glimpse into the future about what the world could potentially be, and how far he may be willing to go to either ensure that it happens or prevent it. And last but not least, I'll also recommend you check out Superman and the Authority number 1 through 4 to see an aging Superman reach out to heroes across the DC universe, with one of the most unlikely of those allies being Midnighter. Midnighter is a really awesome character. I've always really had a fondness for him, and while I know a lot of the times we as comic book fans, and even myself am guilty of this, often tend to just refer to him as gay Batman. It's almost kind of like a joke, in the way that if you've ever heard myself or Carter from the Blurred Cave talk about Daredevil, we always jokingly refer to him as Red Batman, not because that's what he is, but just because it's a funny, gross oversimplification of who and what Daredevil is, no different than who and what Midnighter is. Midnighter is so much more than the sum of his parts. And while he has said and done some somewhat problematic things over the time of his publication history, especially in his early days in Wildstorm, I feel like Midnighter is a character that I think that if more people checked out the old Authority series or read some of his more recent comics, I think a lot of people would find so much to love about this character than they ever could with the Dark Knight himself. And while I know this is going to be the obvious question that's going to come up every single time I ever bring up Midnighter, or anyone else at a comic shop somewhere mentions the character of Midnighter, there's always going to be someone in the crowd who's going to ask the most obvious question: can Midnighter beat Batman? And the answer is yes. He can beat Batman 9 times out of 10. I would even go as far as to say 99.9999999% of the time, and I would even dare go as far as to say 100% of the time. And yes, even with prep time, Midnighter is just that much better of a fighter, an analytical mind, a battlefield tactician. There is literally very few people on Earth who can beat Midnighter in a straight up fight. And honestly, as I said in the Discord server recently, link in the description below, the only person in Batman's orbit who likely stands as good a chance of beating him is the Joker. And yes, as I mentioned in that Dream War issue that I mentioned earlier in the video, yes, Joker stood a better chance of beating Midnighter than Batman could have ever possibly hoped to. If you want to know about a character with a somewhat similar skill set, check out DC Comics' Mr. Terrific, a guy who technically isn't superhumanly strong or as durable as Midnighter, but definitely has an analytical mind that I would say would give even Midnighter a run for his money. You guessed it, obligatory channel outro time. If you're not subscribed to the channel, consider doing so. Clicking that subscribe button and tapping that notification bell ensures that you get more videos just like this one, and you don't miss any of my other content that I drop throughout the week. Plus, My live streams every Thursday and Saturday. And if you enjoyed the video, make sure you click that like button, keep it plus ultra, and sound off in the comments.